We're going to open it up with our executive affairs. I turn the floor over to Dr. Ann Rivera, our chairperson and vice president.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to this section of Executive Affairs. Today we're going to be discussing the security enhancements timeline. It's a very timely topic and I'm looking forward to sharing what the district is doing with all of you. So I'd like to move over to our district partners. Do we have a presenter for this? Is it me presenting it?
Yes, David Hills is on his way to the microphone.
Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm sorry, I can't see that, Mr. Hills. I apologize.
Let me know when you're ready, David.
I'm gonna put up the presentation and I'm gonna move the camera.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, here we go, moving the camera.
Hello. Now I can see you. Hello. Now I can see you.
Can I
somebody.
Hello. Now I can see you. So it sounds like we have some audio difficulty. Hello. Now I can see you. So it sounds like we have some audio difficulty.
Admin is confident that it can be resolved.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Check it out.
So the committee requested an update on safety and security operations, and Tammy, Holly McGee and I are going to present just an overview of where we're at on implementation of new practices, new procedures, new equipment for safety and security. Can you go to the second screen, Admin? And Chief Tammy Holly McGee is going to speak to the new Chief of Security that will be installed.
Thank you, Chief Hill. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to announce our new Chief of Security. Last month, Chief Barbara Lark was approved by the board to participate and be our new Chief of Security. Barbara will begin with us on November 14th. A little bit about Barbara. She is the retired First Deputy Police Commissioner for the Buffalo Police Department. She has 28 years of experience in public safety for the city of Buffalo, held several supervisory positions within the department. She has extensive experience in investigative work experience. She's also certified in DARE. So she has worked with our students and our faculty and staff in teaching them drug resistance and gang violence education. She's also developed community policing initiatives. Also, she was one of our Buffalo Public School resource officers. She's a member of the New York Women in Law Enforcement, and she plans and intends to continue to hold that membership. She's also affiliated with many other professional development organizations, and she has certificates that support that as well. So we're excited and we're pleased to have Chief Barbara Lark join our Buffalo Public Schools family. Next slide, Admir, please. So I want to talk a little bit about our security staffing over the years. So in 2018, prior to COVID, we had around 49 officers on our payroll, 48 in 2019. 2020, 2021, we ramped it up a little bit during the time of COVID. As we all know that our Buffalo Public Schools security officers were in person, providing services to our schools as we were continuing to offer lunch and food programs for parents and students to pick up and still be able to have a healthy meal during the time of COVID. So kudos to our officers for that, and they maintained. But since COVID, we have just, the superintendent as well as the board has directed the Human Resources Department to ramp it up and increase our security officers. And so we are at the point now where we have 79 officers on our payroll, and that is steadily growing. When I go into the staffing levels, you'll see that we actually have 82. There's a few that are not registered on this chart. A couple of those individuals were dealing with some employee relations issues, and one just started to go on our payroll just this week. So we have ramped up pretty significantly. I don't have the percentage in front of me. I should have provided the percentage of how we have increased security from 2018 to 2020. This was not an easy task. It was strategic, and it was a partnership with many of our board members, our staff, and previous staff that was with us to work together and collaboratively to get people in the community interested in being a part of our Buffalo Public Schools family and provide a safe and secure place for our students to come and receive their education. So it's not just the HR department that did this. This is all about the security team, the leadership in the security team, providing interviews.
Call Tammy. Tammy?
Yep. So we have many of our board members or individuals, officers, potential candidates have said, board members have indicated that you guys are looking for officers. So they have decided to separate from their employment and join our team. So we're really excited about that. So thank you all for that. Next slide, please, Admir. So again, we have 82 security officers on our payroll. We have 2 security officers and 1 executive director. We have 67 active. So as we know, we have security officers that unfortunately have circumstances like anyone else that may have them out of the workplace for whatever reason. But there are also some officers that are out due to workers' comp for different reasons that may be related to workplace involvement. So 9 officers are on workers' comp, and we have 1 that's returning. We have 3 officers currently on administrative leave, 1 officer that's on an extended medical leave, 2 officers out on short-term leave. So that means that they're expected to return hopefully before this semester is out. We have 1 new officer that started yesterday. We're really excited about it. And we have 9 successful interview candidates that have been sent to civil are under consideration to be approved and in our buildings to provide security services to our students and staff. So with that being said, we continue to hold interviews every other week to find qualified candidates that are interested in becoming a part of our Buffalo Public Schools family. So we're getting really close to our goal, which was 100 officers on payroll for our Buffalo Public Schools, and we're getting really close to that. Thank you. Next slide, please, Admir. I'm sorry. I thought there was another. Oh, go right ahead, David. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chief McGee. This has been a joint effort to make sure that we staffed up and had security increased at each of our schools. The beginning of September, we implemented a policy that was in place over the summer, 100% screening using the handheld metal detectors, the Garrett handheld metal detectors. So every student on entry to the building is screened at the high school level by the metal detectors. A security officer will screen them for 100%. And any student that arrives late is also screened with the handheld metal detectors. Bags are also checked for every student coming in. We've been able to increase deployment to our high schools to have more security officers. We would have some schools last year who had a staffing level that was 1 for a large school, and we've been able to keep the staffing level up. We can't always control illnesses, and there are not substitutes that we can call on, but we are able to have flexible deployment to have a very high level of coverage. And as we add more officers on, we will continue to increase that deployment. We have 4 security officers who are rotating to elementary schools to support with issues as they come up. They go from school to school in quadrants of the city. And when there's an issue that has to be discussed with security, or something happens where we have to deploy the security officer, those officers can support. We have 2 mobile units currently that also have that flexible supportability, whether sometimes if we're short a security officer for morning entry, we'll send the mobile units over to cover, or they can report to elementary schools to support the elementary schools. And the 2 supervisors are also mobile, so they're able to report site to site. And our executive director is mobile, and he's able to support schools as issues come up. And then there was an increase in the number of resource officers the Buffalo Police Department has. So they've increased the allotment to 10. So we had 7 last year, so we have an increased number of school resource officers that are Buffalo Police employees and are dispatched by either dispatch or us calling them, but usually through a 911 call and dispatch to go to support schools. They also have high concern areas that they're deployed to at the end of the school day. So the school resource officers, and that department also is our communication line for us to find out the disposition of certain cases, to find out what concerns may happen. If an event happens, they are able to give us the information that we need in order to keep the schools safe and prepared. On transit, we have focused the basics and passage with all of our community partners at 10 key strategic locations. They're deployed there, and they usually have 3 to 6 back to basics individuals there for student entry and student dismissal. They have helped us to catch multiple situations, and they will then, if there's an issue, they will contact Chief Young or myself, and we will inform the school. They are a consistent presence, and they've done a tremendous amount to calm some of our key dismissal hotspots. We also have had a strong collaboration between the school resource officers, Buffalo Security, and NFTA Police. Chief Young, Chief Patterson, Chief Flagstaff, or Director Flagstaff, and myself, we communicate daily on issues. If one of us is at Fountain Plaza and sees a train full of trouble heading out, we'll send a text chain out to all constituents. Everyone can prepare for what may be coming or may be happening, and to make sure that things keep calm and everyone gets to where they're supposed to be safely. With both Safe Passage and the NFTA Police, NFTA has been deploying more presence at our stations with cars. Our districts are deploying more presence at our stations with cars, with officers present, and we are seeing the NFTA Police, besides having individuals at the cars. They also have 4 officers that are riding the rails and building relationships with schools and riding the buses. So those four officers are newly deployed. Safe Passage, we've also worked with NFTA to get them bus passes, so they are able to ride transit with the students, so they can continue to build that relationship and be a calming, safe influence. So the Peacemakers, you will see them not only at the stations, the bus hubs, but you will also see them sometimes riding transit. We have met several times with the Peacemakers, NFTA, and the SROs and Executive Director Wagstaff and myself to make sure that there's a common understanding and a comprehensive coverage of our students as they are leaving the school door, heading home, and keeping safe. And we've updated our critical responses to emergencies, which has a comprehensive emergency response plan in it for all buildings to use as a reference, and it was also the framework used by schools to upload their state emergency response plan for each school. It was overhauled this year with changes to the safety postures, changes to the communication postures, scripts for immediate phone calls if a safety posture is implemented, and a lot more clarity on incident reporting and reporting, how and when to make a 911 call. And we did training of all administrators at the summer session and at the September principal and assistant principals meetings. So they are fully aware of all the policies and procedures. From the facilities, we have a lot of processes that are currently in rollout. The new key card access pads under the smart bonds are being installed at schools. We had 14 schools that had failed key card systems. It went up from 12 over the summer to 14. Every time we would have some kind of a power interruption, the controller would fail, which meant that the whole system was useless because it's all proprietary parts, and we can't buy them anymore. The company that made them is out of business. So we have started School 99, has received all new printed key cards, has complete access. They have complete pads, and 32, I was told, was just finished up today, but I haven't driven by to test it. So we are working to have, we lost a couple days on 99 and 32 over what was expected. We're redesigning some of the specs. So we were hoping to have it by the beginning of December and maybe mid-December where all 14 are done. And we're looking to have every school revamped by the beginning of next school year. Along with the key cards, we are putting an arm in every school main office. So there will be an access point where the main office can press an alarm button that triggers an automatic lockdown alert to all emergency responders, and creates a notification throughout the building and cuts out all swipe pads coming in for non-emergency personnel. There are also new intrusion detection systems and warning systems throughout the building. We also have 150 Garrett handheld metal detectors. They are the third model up from the current versions we use. Right now, we have more security officers than we have handheld metal detectors. So we want to equip everyone with that. We also want to have them available in schools for situations where a security officer may not be present, and we want to have adequate backup. They just came in yesterday, and we're distributing them next week.
David, I think we're having some audio issues. Is everybody that's virtually, can they hear okay, or is it in and out?
I'm getting messages that it's a little in and out. We can hear it's echoey and there's some gaps.
Okay. I wonder if
Adam here, do you have any suggestions?
You gotta bring that mic closer to them. Excuse me. That's the best I can do because there's presentation here.
Am I on that mic?
That's not working.
Well, this is useless. So every time
That's
you move
usually,
it-
yes. This is it, sorry.
All right.
Talking to the mic.
I'm also going to speak a little louder. I assume that this microphone was picking up everything, and it was a deafening ring at home. So additionally, besides the Garrett handheld metal detectors, we have 650 Kenwood 2 radios in. Those have been, the purchase order was issued. Those Kenwood two-way radios are the radios you will see in many schools that basically they don't have a screen on them. They have to be programmed for each school location. We have experienced that as bandwidth has gotten kind of gobbled up in the area, that we have to have better programming, and also we have to have the repeaters to make sure that our radios are reliable. So we ordered 65 digital repeaters, make sure that every school, there's no place you can go and not have your radio be clearly heard. And we have 150 two-way radios that have display, which are deployed to security guards exclusively. They are designed that you can change from frequency to frequency if you happen to be at one building and go to another building. We also are starting the process. The purchase order is out, and the company has placed the order for 65 walk-through concealed weapons detection systems that use Motorola and Evolve technology. There was an RFP that went out last year for these weapon detecting systems, and 8 responses to the RFP. 3 of the vendors that responded use exactly the same technology, which is a combination of Motorola hardware, a central tower with sensors in it, and another tower that receives the message from the sensors, and Wi-Fi or wireless alert systems, and Evolve AI technology that interprets the information from the sensors to make sure that everyone knows what is coming through. The Evolve technology using the Motorola equipment, Ink Labs was the company that won the bid to do the rollout, so they will do the placement, they will do the support and the training, but they're worth, and there's exactly the same equipment. We had a review team of our executive director, clerical in the security office. We had one of our district administrators, we had a building administrator, we had a security officer, and myself review the proposals to make sure they were addressed from every perspective. Particularly for people who've seen or used the handheld detectors in student admission. The walk-through detection systems, they did site visits today for many schools. We're focusing on the high school rollout first to see if we can get those installed. We do have some high school sites that will be deployed with 2. Mostly because they are large populations and have 2 points of entry. And then we will have other high schools that have 1 system. Each system can put about 2,000 kids an hour, or 2,000 individuals an hour can go through the system. So that's we have a video on the Evolve technology in use at 2 schools that have used it. Charlotte Mecklenburg did, oh, thank you. I was going to beg for one. Charlotte Mecklenburg did a rollout about end of last school year of all their schools, and I think Spartansburg did a rollout several years ago. Locally, Niagara Falls has used this equipment, so it's in large use. We are competing right now for shipping with Disney World, that just did a large purchase of Evolve technology, so we do need to compete with them. Tennessee Titans are putting in their new stadium. Lincoln Center uses the technology, so it's widely used in schools and widely used in a lot of other high profile, high capacity venues. Can we show the video? And Admir, this is going to be tricky. The video is going to be tough. Okay. Do you need to move this?
Wrong way. This. All right, so. Where did it go? It's here.
All right. So, come on. And there we go. Put the. I gotta move this over there.
All right.
Safety is extremely important for students to learn. As I think about safety, it's both ends. It's for students and for staff. And so here at Harvard University High School, we want to definitely be sure that our students feel safe because we know that has a direct correlation to the academic environment and learning process for students. And so each day our students will come in, or in this location here, and that process will be very seamless so that they will then have an opportunity to feel safe on campus after being cleared through this process.
When I first heard about the scanning system, I did think it was going to be an inconvenience because of the amount of time we have to get to class, and I just thought it would have taken up more time.
Our students have said that they want to feel safe, that sense of belonging onto a safe campus, and it has a direct impact on not just our students, but also on our staff.
It helps me to be able to maybe learn better in my classes, knowing that there's an extra like kind of blanket or layer of security to the school with students coming in.
It helps me to be more focused in school and like when I'm goes on, I know what's happening. I'm not constantly checking over my shoulder when there's a commotion.
Again, we don't have to worry about a threat being here, that we can just go to school and
get a certain reassurance that there are no dangerous weapons on campus. Now that if anything happens, I know that I'm not going to be threatened with any firearms, any knives, any sort of metallic weapon at all. I know that I can focus on school without being in danger.
Okay, now we're back.
Building you.
Okay.
Okay.
So, as you can see, when a student walks through the technology, there is a tablet. There are actually two tablets, one right by the system on like a music stand, one over at a secondary table for screening. That trigger it, they just keep walking. It will send an alarm and show a video and a picture with a box around the area that triggered it, if it is triggered. And then if that is the case, the student will walk over to the screening table and the security officer there will know exactly where to look for the item potentially. And it could be a binder that has a certain ring configuration. They're designed to use artificial in technology to recognize shapes, to recognize dangerous items by their low radio frequency responses and other imaging and sensor technology. So those items will then be checked for, and that student will then be free to go after they've been cleared. Charlotte Mecklenburg reports about a 1 in 5 students have to be screened. They have it on a very high security setting, which you can alter. So those students, you still will have some students that go and have to have the handheld metal detectors used, or have to have their bags looked in, but the officers will know where exactly they're looking, which will be a much quicker process. And it will replace a very the process we're using now, which is not necessarily a warm embrace as you walk into school, with a process that's much more seamless, much more socially friendly, and much more appropriate for entering a school building while still preserving safety in the schools. So that's how the technology works. It works very seamlessly, but you still have to have a backup if it does trigger, but you can wand with more deliberation, quickness, and effectiveness. So at this point, I do want to briefly say there are a couple things we are working on putting into play. We are working on trying to find grant funding for alarming every single exterior door, or some way that we can get that done. That had not been hardwired into any plans, and it's a critical component that's been recommended to us. So we probably have every single exterior door that is not currently secured with a pad alarmed, so we can tell if it's open from the inside. So are there any questions?
Yes, I think we do have some. I'd like to kick off the question round, and then I'll go around to my colleagues after that. So the very first one that I have, oh, I actually have two. The first one, though, is you had mentioned that there's been more training on incident reporting. So you're going to be collecting incident reporting from buildings. Is there a plan to track that reporting to identify areas that we need to give further support to?
So we have started sharing those incident reports with the Office of Shared Accountability because that's a critical component of identifying areas where we do have concerns. Ebony Bullock can speak a little more to what she's pulling together.
Thank you.
So the answer, good evening. So the answer is yes. So right now, my colleague and I, Samolsky Peters, who's the assistant superintendent in our office, we have a repository. We receive all of the incident reports, and we actually make sure that everything is buttoned up on the reports, and we do the final reporting to the state. That also includes if something that does not need to be reported to the state, because sometimes a checkbox on the form is checked and it shouldn't be, and so we double check that. Every day we do a random checking of all of the incident reports that come into our office. And we're doing the reports.
Mostly what I'm curious
It's about 8 to 10 a day.
Yeah.
It's about 8 to 10 a day. Oh, that's good to know. Mostly what part of it is a question, because I had a feeling you were doing this. Part of it was just a direction to indicate that you are tracking this, you are looking for patterns, and you are looking for ways to continue to support individual schools. And I think that's just an important connection to make.
Support and train. Support and train.
Good point. And that's really good. Thank you.
By and large, a good portion of the incident reports that come in are medical crisis, medical emergencies. A staff member falls down, and so a lot of them are responding to that. But the issues of more concern, we're tracking to try and identify patterns and intervene where necessary.
Oh, that's helpful. Thank you. And then my second one, and then I'll start running through what I'll give my colleagues a chance to ask some questions, is that you indicated you're looking for grant and other opportunities to alarm every exterior door. Would it be possible to include labeling doors too, so that there's some coordination inside outside about where, if something does happen, where people are coming in and out of doors, where they can meet students, et cetera?
So we have had preliminary discussions about labeling doors. Each door has a name on our plans. So each door has a designation. And we haven't come to a conclusion of whether that is the best way to provide support for emergency response, but I think it's something we need to consider. The alarm is definitely something that is just on the face value, less complex than labeling the doors. And I know it doesn't seem complex, and it's a great question and idea. And we have raised it at the table. We're gonna, that's a much easier lift than the alarms.
That makes sense. I think mostly what I was looking for is that it's on the table as a part of the discussion. So thank you for that. I'd like to turn it around to my colleagues. This time I'm going to go in order on the screen. Dr. Evans-Brown, do you have any questions?
Good evening, everyone. So along the same line that Dr. Rivera mentioned, so in addition to the alarm, will there be a video of some sort to discern the image of the person, perhaps?
So right now we do have, it's not too much. We do have, I haven't found a door yet that we don't have a camera nearby. And during the old days where we had, instead of the 360 cameras we have now, we used to have pan and scan cameras that would trace back and forth. And when a 911 call would go out, all of them would lock whatever door was closest. So if there was a 911 call, we would always have video of who was going in or out the door after the call was made. So we are looking at ways we can coordinate with the cameras. Basically, with door alarms, there's the simplest is to have an audio alarm that people can hear. The next step is to integrate it into our existing security system. So there's a warning in the main office, and so that it integrates with the cameras so that the image is captured. So that's something that, as we're looking at this, we have to look at how it integrates in the existing system. It is certainly not too much to ask.
Yeah, thank you. I like that explanation that you gave. And then I know you mentioned this. These systems are going to be in every one of our schools, correct?
Correct. They're being under the smart bonds. They're being installed in every one of our schools. We started with 99 because they were one of the 14 schools that did not have swipe pads that were functioning at all. And 32, same. Every school we're doing first has swipe pad systems that aren't functioning.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. I'd like to move over to Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Mr. Scott, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. McGee and Mr. Hills, for your presentation and all your work. I think the only thing that I have a question on, and I'm sorry if you already answered this, Mr. Hills, but any update on the installation of the walk-through weapons detectors?
So we just, the purchase order was just released yesterday. The company is processing the order and doing site visits at each of our high schools. Today I was at South Park. They did a visit at, I think, about 8 schools today. They're going to do a whole bunch tomorrow. By the end of the week, they'll have the site visits done. The site visits help the principal meets with the company and a security officer and their engineer, and they go, we're going to put these, where's the power? And then we have to make a determination if it's a left side or a right side unit, because apparently you have to order them differently. So at the end of this week, we'll have the order completed, and then we have to, it could be anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks to have them on location. But we're looking to expedite so we can have them shipped straight to the buildings. And we worked with engineers to do that today so that even if it takes a little while, we can start rolling out at the early end of that 3 weeks. We are competing. World apparently just put a big order in for the same devices we're getting, and they're kind of a big customer. So we will deploy. I'm hoping, I can't, don't quote me on this. I'm hoping that we will have schools started before Thanksgiving or immediately after, at least a couple up and running, so we can kind of test it out and have some best practices and share out what works, what we need to think about. And then every high school by Christmas break, and then the elementary schools over Christmas break to maybe get them shipped in. But it's still, we'll know more in a couple of weeks of how if that's a wildly optimistic timeline or if it's realistic.
Great update. Thank you, Mr. Hills.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Woods, do you have any questions?
I like the varied approaches that he's taken to increase security. I thought there were 10 SROs though last year, 10 or 11. So that kind of threw me. I thought we already had 10 or 11 SROs last year. 2 were one, and another one were on workers' comp. But you said something about we only have 7, and it increased.
We had 7 last year. Now we're up to 10. And there are some new ones, and Juan Phillips has returned, and I don't think the other individual has returned yet.
And that would still only have us at 10?
Correct.
Okay, because the SROs are the most effective personnel that relate to the young people, and they are truly stretched very thin. So, you know, I worry about whether that's enough because they're covering multiple schools, running everywhere. So I'm glad we're going to get Go ahead.
Oh, it is a very challenging position and deployment. And we are very grateful for all the hard work our SROs do and the way they integrate into our school communities and support our school leaders, support our families, support our parents. So yes, there would be no argument for me to increase even more for the SROs.
Okay. Hutch Tech was really emphasizing that we did need to have cameras and crash bars or something at each of the doors to monitor who's coming and going. So you've addressed that. That's really great. We'll have to try to find some funding, grant funding for that. That really is an important issue. And the only other thing is about the NFTA and safe passages, focusing on downtown where we have Hutch Tech, both. We have Emerson, we have Hutch Tech, we have Herman Balladillo, and 2,000 students all coming out at the same time. And they seem to be hanging out in these parking ramps before school, doing illicit activities. I mean, can you elaborate a little bit on how are focusing on that area, because that is a major concern for me.
So the downtown corridor is a major concern. We've had multiple meetings of the downtown principals, Chief Patterson and Chief Young and Lieutenant Craig and Executive Director Wagstaff and myself to set up some policies and procedures. We also are trying to work with the Asperger ramp and that if they see something, don't wait and say, hey, come over and see some video, call 911 right away. Because there is a delay that's making it hard for us to figure out exactly what happened and respond to it. But we have met twice with them. We've met with other downtown partners. Our numbers for incidents in October are down from NFTA, are down from the incidents in the downtown corridor last October. But it's still an area of concern. If I have any ability at the end of the day to go anywhere, I'll either go to Fountain Plaza, I'll go to McKinley, I'll go to the Riverside bus loop. Sometimes I'll go outside of IPREP, but that's been quiet this year, or I'll go to up towards University, because once everything else is calm, that's where they're all winding up and they're going across the street to Wendy's. So I think we're working to develop those partnerships. There is no silver bullet. But I think as a community, we continue to keep sending the message that we want you guys to go home safe. We want you to be appropriate and get on your bus and not congregate looking for some action downtown, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for something to happen that they can watch. It is what concerns me. Fountain Plaza, I will not rest on it, and we're not there yet. I do feel it's better than it was last year. Last year, there were
Final,
times.
the final concern with that same corridor is Evergreen is there near touched. And I've got more community members calling me about drug activity. So I will be needing to meet with you and the team to see what we can do to alleviate some of that activity that the community is very concerned about. And it is a problem for our students too.
We have been meeting with Evergreen monthly since a year and a half when we came back from the pandemic. We started to notice some severe issues. There are members of the community that will call me that meet with Evergreen. Councilman Nowakowski has been there because that is in his council district, even though if you walk 20 feet any direction, the council district changes. And I would be happy, Board Member Woods, to extend an invitation for you to join us at those meetings. B District is there. And B District has, in the past year, become much more responsive with these issues that we're seeing around Hutch Tech. The communities there. Evergreen has stepped up. It's still a very large needle exchange program, but they have reduced the number of needles they hand out to 1-to-1. Hutch Tech is the only school where the maintenance staff has a sharp container on all of their garbage cans. So we have been tracking, and there is a reduction. You know, I'll talk to the engineer before I go to the meeting every time and say, how did it look this month? There has been an overall reduction. We are calling 911 for every issue we see, and if we have a community member brings something or encouraging them to call 311 so it gets on record, and we are reviewing that because that's being brought to those meetings by the councilman. He also is moving to we did get a new property owner on Georgia Street, that one property that was a heavy hub, and that property owner is present at those meetings, and he's much more responsive. Wind development. I'd say that the next big challenge is that store on the corner, which is a nuisance, and it has been cited multiple times, and Johnson Park itself.
I would greatly appreciate the invitation to the meeting, and I would love to bring a couple of community members so they can be aware that we are addressing it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. I'd like to turn to Mr. Petrucci in the boardroom.
Yeah, we're going to have to bring the microphone over, David.
Oh, yes.
Using updated technology here. We can just put it over here.
Yeah, this is fine.
Thank you. Can you hear me, fellow board members?
We can.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. First of all, a few things, Ann. Thank you for letting me speak, and thank you for the presentation, both Tammy and David. First, I want to give my full-throated endorsement for Barbara Lark. I worked with Barbara for more than 20 years with the City of Buffalo. We worked on a variety of different projects. I can attest to her deep knowledge of the community, her commitment, and her ability to resolve various issues. So I was very happy to see that she's our new Director of Security. One thing, too, I wanted to speak to was 2 weeks ago, I was at the Council of Great City Schools Conference, and I went around and kicked the tires about evolved technology. So I went to other school districts that had it and said, hey, how do you guys like this technology? And they all said similar things like I was wondering if they were being plied with food, because they were all saying how much they like the technology. But more so, I said, what are we missing? What's the question, or what's the missing component about it? And they said the one big factor is how much it acts as a deterrent, because the technology is so advanced and it's so thorough that it gives people that may want to participate in a little bit of skullduggery some second thoughts. Hey, I'm not going to do this because chances are pretty good that I'm going to get caught, because it is such a robust system. So that was good to hear also. I didn't think about the deterrent end. That was the one thing that they wanted to stress. So I have two questions for you. and both of them have to do with process. So one of my concerns is, great, we're going to put these systems in place, we're going to have the additional SROs and the additional security guards, and we're going to have this digital technology, and someone's going to give us this great grant, and we're going to get crash bars and cameras, one type or the other. Okay. What happens when a student pops the bar and the camera identifies it? Explain that process going forward. What would that look like? So where does it go? What's the response? What does the district do?
Whenever we have an incident in the school, and I don't know if I'm too far from the microphone. Can I be heard?
Here, I got it. We can move it.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can as well.
probably don't have to stand at the podium. So when we have an incident in school, we have clear consequences in our code of conduct. We also contact 911. So it would be an automatic call to 911, and it would be processed through law enforcement. We also have policies in place for if someone has unauthorized access to the building, that will be a ban from the building and notification. And very often the SROs will take that letter to the house, or we will mail it certified mail, notify the families. It depends on the age, what the consequence is, but we have clear code of trespasser what the result would be.
And this is relatively new, you can correct me, and because of that, because people monitor our 911 calls. So there's been a little uptick over past years, but the process is different. So I think sometimes they're comparing apples and oranges.
We have, for the sake of making sure SROs are involved, and also for the sake of law enforcement having clear information. Because law enforcement then takes our 911 calls and they cross-reference it with other calls. So we've had a lot of incidents where we didn't think it was a big deal. When it was investigated, we found out much more information. An incident happened 2 weeks ago, something that probably wouldn't have triggered, if it was a 911 call, we wouldn't have necessarily, but law enforcement knew the other part of the picture. So right now, we instruct principals, if you find out something at night, you always want to call from the school phone because it has the record. Everyone knows you made a 911 call, so we can always come back on it. But if you find out something at night, call from your cell phone. Dispatch, in the many cases we've had this year, dispatch, even if they live in Amherst, well, the district where the kid is, the district overnight can follow up and can let the school know in the morning. And we've had probably 5 of those this year where they call from their cell phone at night and dispatch sent it to district and they followed up, visited the house, clarified the issue. At the morning, they were able to, either through the SROs or through them visiting the school, let the principal know what's going on.
And you can, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hills, but I believe that part of the notification was at the recommendation of some of our groups that work with missing and exploited children, because this was a way to shorten that time period where the child was gone and people didn't know where they were.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to,
Any elopement we have, any missing child, any runaway warrant that we call 911.
Okay.
Where we wouldn't have necessarily in the past.
Right. So I just want to explain that there's reasons why we do these things. So there's a method for my questioning. Next is we get these wonderful evolved things. We're on par with Disney and the NFL football teams. This is great. We're on the cutting edge. So what happens when they find something, heaven forbid, we have a knucklehead who decides to bring in something into, or try and bring something into one of our classrooms? What does that process look like going forward?
So anytime an item is found that is an imminent danger to the school, it will trigger a safety posture, whether it be a shelter in place or a lockdown, and will trigger a call to 911. Okay. And then there will be a response. There is on the technology, and forgive me, I don't know it 100%, but there is notification to certain people via text. So we're going to look how we'll have that set up. So we could possibly have a situation where someone comes in and we get a text message with the picture that says this popped up at school 195. And so we'd be able to then deploy to support the school. But when they ping, there's the box. They'll go over to a table, they'll get the secondary check. If something's found, then it will trigger. And also they record, if it's nothing, they swipe it off. And and then they can record what the item was that was found. And that helps the software to better identify future items.
Gotcha. And then that would be, then if there was an incident or something found, then that would trigger a report that would go to Ms. Bullock and she would do her accounting. Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes my questions.
Thank you very much. And I would like to turn to Ms. McCosey. Do you have any questions?
All my questions were actually asked, so I feel like I'm very well prepared with what people are bringing to me. When you talked about how long it would take, how many students can go through this within a certain time frame, you know, there's always the folks who are like, we don't want this at all, but we know the situation and we know who's going to be doing the actual, you know, checking everything out. You've answered pretty much everything. I just want to commend you all for really, you know, being on top of this, giving us a great update. And, you know, if we're really on par with, you know, that's not just a funny statement, that's truth. Like, we're on par with Disney World and professional football teams. This is the type of technology we're bringing to the table. And, you know, I hope that folks can respect the fact that we are serious about the safety and welfare of our students and faculty and staff. So again, thank you very much. And thanks, colleagues, for asking all my questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. McCosey. I have one final question, mostly because I just want to highlight it, which is it's expanding on Mr. Petrucci's last question about what happens if something is found. So you gave us a really good step-by-step how that's going to work. The next piece that I ask as a follow-up is how will this work or continue to work with restorative practices?
So as a principal at 43 Waterfront and then Riverside, if you had ever asked me, do you want weapons detection or do you want another guidance counselor? I would have always said, give me another guidance counselor. But we are in a position this year where we've been able to hire additional guidance counselors. We've been able to hire additional social workers, and we're able to implement this technology. What this allows for is the entry into the school is much more humane. Your first experience in the morning with a security officer will not be one of stop, put your arms out, and a device circulating in a 7 shape from your wrist to your ankles on each side and then down your back. So to get-go, it's a warmer embrace of the school community in the morning, but it will also allow for less time in the morning, which can allow for those homerooms to have time for homeroom teachers and students to connect. And it will be, we are doing work on restorative practices that will be in parallel to this. I do think the valve technology has a much more restorative face to it. But if we don't do the hard work as the adults in the community to bring restorative practices in, technology is not going to bring us restorative practices. It's the hard work behind the doors, but it does at least not become a hindrance to it.
I really appreciate your answer, and I specifically just appreciate the highlight that it's a hand-in-hand approach. It allows for more space for restorative practices in terms of time, but it also allows for students to have that warmer embrace when they come into the building, because relationships are fundamental in feelings of safety too. So you need the physical safety, but you also need the relationships. So thank you for closing with that. I appreciate it.
And it's not to dig my hole deeper, but it's hard to form relationships when your limbic brain is activated all the time because you're not sure if you're safe. This communicates, you're safe, let your guard down, connect with people.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you very much for my colleagues' really smart and insightful questions. And unless there's anything else, I think we can close this section of the work session. Please go ahead.
Jim Barnes, Jennifer Latempio, Mike Moran, Marianne Dixon, behind the scenes worked tirelessly to get this all arranged, and we wouldn't be where we are today if both Marianne Dixon and the security department and the finance and purchase department didn't help us to take this next step. So
Thank
that
you very
is-
much. Could you extend the board's thanks to them as well?
Thank you. Jim's standing right here.
Thank you, Jim, on behalf of the board. We appreciate this. Anything else, colleagues, or can we move on to our next, finance and operations?
I think we can move on to finance, Ann.
Thank you so much. I turn it over to Ms. Woods, the Chair of Finance.
Good evening. Welcome to the Finance and Operations work session for today. We have 3 topics. One is a presentation on savings through using electric buses. It's a new initiative, which I think you'll find very exciting. We have an update on our progress with finding a home for Da Vinci. And then that's a capital project, suggested capital project. And then we have another suggested capital project update for the All High Stadium. So as this is finance and operations, I want to turn it over to either the superintendent if she is here, or if she is not, then Mr. Hill, Associate Superintendent, Mr. Hill.
Board Member Woods, you can actually start with the first presentation on the electric buses.
Okay, but I'm not sure who's doing the presentation.
Should I move
Yes, you
somewhere
can.
else? Should I move? So, do you want me to move to the table?
Oh, she can go ahead. I hired it. Just be recording me.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Schultz and my colleague Rick Steinberg. We are thrilled about the electric buses that we're moving forward with electric buses for our students as an environmental justice issue and for our bus drivers and for our communities. But today we're actually here to speak on the energy performance contract and ways we can save money for our schools and reduce greenhouse gases. My few minutes that I'm going to talk about is focused on climate and really the part from the heart, and a little bit on saving money. And Rick is going to get into the details. So as I said, my name is Sarah Schultz, and I've been chairing the Sierra Club Niagara Group for 5 years now. I've been involved for a number of years. We are a group of about 3,000 members in Western New York, covering 7 counties, part of a larger state, and then United States group. I assure you that my background as a music therapist, a Jewish educator, and hospital chaplain is far from the environmental field, but I've always been a tree hugger, cherishing nature and trying to live in harmony and not dominion over the natural world. To be a climate activist, one only needs to understand the deep connection of all living things. I've seen it for myself many times, and most of all as a wolf watcher in Yellowstone National Park. Wolves were systematically killed and removed from the western United States. No longer threatened by wolves, the elk population exploded and decimated much of the habitat near the rivers. Consequently, there were no songbirds, riverbanks eroded without the shrubs and cottonwood trees, small mammals lost their habitat. When the wolves were reintroduced in 1995, the park slowly came back to its glorious magnificence. This is but one story that reveals how everything depends on everything else. From the plankton to the insects, to protect all life, we must live in relationship with life and take action to do our part. Our planet has warmed around 1.2 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial levels. You don't have to look far to see an increase in billion-dollar weather events, fires, floods, droughts, heat waves, and hurricanes are more frequent and more devastating than ever. Even Western New Yorkers cannot hide from our changing world. Closer to home, we've had more rain, higher winds have caused more frequent and higher Lake Erie sessions where the water moves from one end of the lake up to 7 feet high at our end of the lake. More ticks and vector-borne diseases, invasive species moving north, tree die-offs, toxic algae blooms in our precious waters, and hotter summers. The spillover events like the coronavirus from animals to humans are projected to increase exponentially. Already, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, more than half of all assessed species have shifted their habitats poleward in response to warming. As people with means pick up and leave areas that are uninhabitable, Western New York is poised to be a climate refuge. It's all so overwhelming, especially since your mission is to educate our children and keep them safe. So why are we asking you to ensure the Buffalo Public Schools are made sustainable and less energy intensive? It is because we too are consumed with the future of our children. My colleague Rick and I are both grandparents. What kind of world will our little ones be left with? And even more importantly, how do we engage in the work of reducing our carbon footprints? First, let me say, to slow down carbon chaos, which is happening now, we need all hands on deck. Every person, every business, every entity, public and private, every system must be improved or changed. With the Inflation Reduction Act, there is more opportunity than ever to make energy-saving changes with increased solar energy on our school rooftops. Schools and other non-tax-paying entities will be treated as if they were taxpayers, with 30% of the cost of the project given back as direct payment upon completion of projects. Schools would own their solar installations. The energy savings would cover the cost of the debt service. There is a bonus credit of 10% for projects in low-income communities. Since the panels last 25 plus years and the debt can be paid off within or less than 12 years, that gives the Buffalo schools 13 plus years of low-cost or no-cost electricity. I know this personally since our own home roof installation in 2016, we've only paid for electricity when snow has completely covered the roof. And you can be sure because of climate change that it doesn't stick to the roof for very long. The price of electricity has only increased over time and will continue to increase. We got into this mess because of short-term thinking. We can no longer afford short-term thinking. Carbon dioxide is defined by the Clean Air Act as an air pollutant. If we could prioritize reducing our climate emissions, think what that means to the environmentally impacted communities near the 190 and Route 33, where buses, trucks, and cars fill the air with particulate matter. The CLCPA, the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act, was passed in 2019 by the New York State legislators and signed into law by the governor with a mandate that we produce 70% of our electricity carbon-free by 2030. I hope we will do everything that we can to make that reality for our children and our community. We have the tools, but we don't have the time. Time is not on our side at this point. The time is now. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for giving us this time to present. My name is Richard Steinberg. I'm here as a member of the Sierra Club Niagara Group along with our chairperson, Sarah Schultz. I have a BA in history, a master's degree in occupational therapy, and a master's of health education from the University of Buffalo. I worked as an OT for the Buffalo Board of Education for 26 years. My associate superintendent for 10 of those years was Will Christus. Our sole group in the Sierra Club worked with Paul McDonald, former Director of Facilities and Plant Operations, Joe Giussiana, former Associate Superintendent of Plant and Facilities Operations, Board President Louis Petrucci, former board member Jason McCarthy, and other Board of Education members for 11 years on the school solar project. We're here tonight again to bring attention to energy issues and their benefits to our students. This is in regards to supporting the Buffalo Board of Education members to continue their work on energy performance contracts to replace fluorescent lights with LEDs, light-emitting diodes, and to increase the number of solar panels on school rooftops. Regarding LEDs, the Department of Energy, I quote, there is a high potential for electricity savings through the use of more energy efficiency lighting technologies. LEDs are 2 times as efficient as fluorescent lighting, 50 to 60% reduction for lighting, depending upon the fixtures, and at the same time provide important performance enhancements. The US EPA notes, quote, there are environmental benefits to using LEDs as they have a longer lifetime than conventional lighting, and this generates less waste and contaminants, such as mercury, which is found in the fluorescent bulbs, PCBs, which can be found in the magnetic T12 fluorescent ballast. They are carcinogenic and can lead to health effects on the immune system, the nervous, and the endocrine systems. The Allergy and Asthma Foundation of America found that Buffalo rated number 24th in the nation for asthma. Buffalo has a worse than average visits to the ER for asthma, end quote. If children are at the ER room during school, they're missing school. The Buffalo schools are missing state aid. Parents and responsible adults may be missing work, and if they're Buffalo Public School employees, we're missing staff. Amongst the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America suggestions to reduce asthma in our communities, these include switching to cleaner energy, using LED lights, voting for asthma-friendly policy, and speaking at local city council or
board members and staff, could you make sure you're muted?
Well, Matt, just tell me who you want, because, ENA made the rules of the VPN. Hold on. Let me just mute it up there.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's see, the EPA notes, quote, children are often more vulnerable to pollutants than adults due to differences in behavior and biology that can lead to greater exposure and or unique windows of susceptibility during development, end quote. The EPA, quote, advantages of LEDs include low energy consumption, longer lifetime, ruggedness, durability, compactness, safety from a low operating current, fast on-time operability in low temperature applications, dimmability, easy installation, and directionality. So these fluorescents above us would all be kind of tiny, small circles. On 10/17/22, I spoke with Dan Lim, who's a supervising engineer for the state ed department. Dan he reviews the financials for EPCs from New York State for different school districts. Dan stated, quote, the LED jump from fluorescent lighting to LED technologies will bring significant savings to the school district. LEDs have a short payback time, and the design does so much more than other lighting. On 10/27/22, Paul McDonald added, quote, there are a whole number of advantages that an EPC project brings. We ought to insist on new LED fixtures, not just lamps, as we would be replacing 20-year-old fixtures in our Buffalo public schools that are now beginning to fail, don't meet current SED lighting standards, and contain lamps and ballasts that need constant replacement. Not only would we be saving energy, but reducing maintenance costs considerably. The EPC would also upgrade, this is according to Paul, motors on HVAC systems in the Buffalo Public Schools. Any EPC should address the electrical system at Hutch, which is undersized and needs a new service. End quote. In summary, using EPC contracts, the Buffalo Public Schools can replace their fluorescent lights with no money down and pay back the money using the operational savings in about 3 years. After that, the school system gets the benefit of the operational cost savings. So the bulbs save money, need to be replaced less often, are better for health, and better for the environment. It's a win-win for the Buffalo Public Schools. And just a shorter piece on the solar performance, because we have them, and this is from 3/18/28 Buffalo News. The solar arrays on our 19 Buffalo Public School rooftops provide learning environments for our students, pathways to growing careers, technical opportunities in the emerging renewable energy sector, allowed the Buffalo Public Schools to save money, reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, and contribute to a cleaner environment. The installed rooftop solar arrays collectively generate approximately 3.5 million kilowatts of power yearly, which is comparable to the annual electricity usage of 400 homes. The arrays reduce electricity demand from traditional sources at each school by about 25% annually, reducing greenhouse gas emissions by more than 2,600 metric tons annually, and providing the district with cost savings. The Buffalo Public School project was the largest K-12 solar project completed for a public school district in New York State. The project used construction crews from local neighborhoods, placing local workers in good jobs. These construction laborers worked side by side with solar teams to complete the solar system installations at the very schools from which many of them graduated. The project created long-term operations and utility cost savings, decreasing overall energy consumption and emissions, and provided students with a healthier environment. Through the partnership with Push Buffalo, the project directly benefited the community with jobs and the opportunity to acquire new technical skills. In summary, when executed with teams who are invested in the local community, projects like the solarization of Buffalo Public Schools pay far greater dividends than the value of the power produced for the school district. These projects enrich students' educational experience, deliver on-job training for one of the country's fastest growing industries, and directly support job growth in the city of Buffalo. They demonstrate that we can grow our economy and create good-paying jobs while also protecting our natural environment. So I have copies of the, because there are links here for board members, and I put my email, so if there's board members,
I'll make sure they get in the mailbox.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. And hopefully a board member takes a special interest and wants to work with us, which in the past has meant an email once in a while. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Richard Steinberg, for that presentation. The Buffalo Public Schools is always looking for cost avoidance and savings, additional revenue streams, and updating our buildings. And of course, we're concerned about the climate and health of our students, and also new jobs and technology. So it wasn't quite the presentation on the savings for the buses, but it's an excellent presentation on cost savings. Does any board members have any questions about this project? If you've got, raise your hand. Okay, Lou, can you start?
Thank you. Thank you, Sierra Club members, much appreciated. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that both electric buses and the energy performance contracts were two of the topics that were presented at the New York State School Board Association, so they're big deep dive sessions. I'm happy to share the link to the PowerPoint presentations that they gave us, but I did kind of want to emphasize some of the things that they stressed. So one of the questions that was brought up is that there are districts that contract out for their bus service. So someone in the audience asked, well, why would we need to upgrade our electrical service and the build out for infrastructure for when we have these buses that are going to be primarily charged someplace else? And they stress that, remember that, you probably want to have some alternative for the bus to charge while it's at the school also, because, batteries get old, charges run down, but you also want to build out the infrastructure for your teachers to be able to charge their vehicles as well, and for the upgrade in all the new energy performance things that we're trying to get done as well, which led itself into the, and every school district across New York State all have the same charge to use all electric buses, so they're all fighting for the same type of modernization of their respective plants and schools and bus fleets. And there are a lot of really good questions from some of them are accounting, Jim, like how do you value electric bus at the end of its life when the battery's dead? How do you put a cost on a battery that's been, that's been overcharged and will no longer take a charge? There are like really informative, but questions that I wouldn't have thought myself. But the big thing was the electric performance contract, or the energy performance contract, and how that all ties in. Because to your point, Paulette, that most of the upgrades that we have done are more than 20 years old. Many of them were done through the Joint Schools Construction Project. We did not do air conditioning, so our buildings are not conditioned for proper use during the summer, and things have gotten hotter, and some of our buildings just are very hot during the summer. I see in the audience people nodding their heads. And that we need to build that in. And there's additional challenges because we primarily have boilers. So they give us some additional challenges when converting or upgrading as well. But if we want our buildings to be fully used facilities all the year round. But to your point about the lighting, which is one of our big uses. So think of energy, think of our boilers, think about the way we put heat, think of insulation, the building envelopes, and our windows and everything else. But also, think about the lighting. Now, we did have NYSERDA came in and did an energy audit for our lighting, which was great, but we were unable to do the entire school district. We did significant portions, but not all of it. And again, that work that we did is in that 15 to 20 year range. So you've got 20-year ballasts, you've got 20-year-old fixtures, you've got 20-year-old. So it is really about that time. The energy audit the energy performance is designed to pay for itself and to actually significantly reduce the cost of the energy usage, and provided by reducing the energy usage that your overall costs will go down. Energy prices go a little crazy, but we're presuming that if energy usage go down, energy cost goes down. But we also reduce our carbon footprint as well by reducing the amount of energy. The one thing that they all stressed, that everyone stressed, was that all of these upgrades to our district comes with an educational component that needs to be integrated into the coursework. And they're all pretty adamant about it, because this is kind of the way to change the way we instruct, and really give that kids that kind of tactile feel. They can go and see and touch and see the things that are being done in our buildings and how it relates to the bigger world out there. So it's a unique opportunity that we would have also. But the big thing would be the savings. The one question I was asked, because we don't vote on our school budgets, but if you do put the energy performance out for a vote, you get an additional 10% credit as well. So they give you some additional money for that. We would have to kind of figure out how or if they would let us do that, but because I haven't seen the legislation, but that extra 10% could mean a lot for us as well. But I really think, again, I'm willing to share the PowerPoint presentation, but I did go to both of them anticipating that you guys would be here today, but also be able to share with my fellow board members what's going on. And this is really the direction that the state wants to go, and the entire state, not just one individual department, the entire state, all the various departments and divisions are all going towards this. So it's our opportunity to be towards the front now.
Could I add 2 points?
You can add 3.
Okay. One is that the contract that the Buffalo Public Schools has for the transportation of students is with First Student, and New York State has a New York voucher incentive program, and First Student applied for 6 electric buses for the public schools. And the other issue, just to support what President Petrucci said about an educational component, when the first 19 schools the solar arrays were put on, the RFPs all asked for the solar company to make some kind of allocation for student education. And the one that was chosen did 40 hours of teacher education in the buildings where these were put up, and they were then able to teach the students in the schools more about the technology.
So I just think it's a great program. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you for letting us speak. Thank you, Mr. Petrucci, the presentations at the conference were very enlightening. And again, cost savings, cost avoidance is a financial goal. Any other board members have a question or would like to make a comment? I can't see hands, so.
I believe Ms. Mikosi raised her hand.
Ms. Mikosi?
Thank you, Chairman Woods. I attended a conference with local progress in the education realm around electric buses as well, so I was kind of looking forward to comparing, what I heard there and what would be here. I do appreciate the presentation, and actually was director of organizing with Push Buffalo when we did this project. And I do want to stress that the way the community benefits from a project on our schools like the solar panels, and knowing that this might be another conversation of other buildings. It's just a rumor right now, but I just want to stress that if that's a possibility, creating jobs, using now, this is kind of internships for our students, really bringing in the educational factor, and knowing that the CTE program has already been doing this, and we have graduates who have moved on to, after graduating high school, they've moved on to union jobs with this with the salaries that go with it. The way that we as Buffalo Public Schools, really marry the work and the educational piece is amazing. So I just wanted to point that out. And I also have a question around, if possible, if we can get, the board members can get, or I can get the real cost savings and the usage that we were able to, whether or not how we've been able to not use so much electricity because of some of these solar panels. If we can get that kind of data over the years, since I know it was enough years ago to really make a difference and to really have some sort of data tied to this. But these solar panels I'm very interested in, and would love to see the data as to where we were before we installed them and where we are now, and the cost savings behind those. Because like I said, it is a great educational tool. It did help create jobs. It boosts the economy, but I also want to make sure that it's, it's cost effective for our district. And as far as everything else goes, yes, the lighting, all of this is so necessary. I'm definitely, a proponent to make sure that we take care of our Mother Earth. So I'm with Sierra Club all the way, and any other organization that promotes the betterment of our world for our students in our future.
Jen, I'm sorry, real quick. Jen, I just forwarded you the energy performance presentation that we got at the New York State School Boards.
Thank you.
Our contract here is a power purchase agreement, and the solar company gives the energy that's produced on the rooftops is a fixed, we get 19%. The schools get 19% of what's produced on each school top. And now we're able to increase the kilowatt hour production. It was 250 kilowatt hour units, arrays that went up, and now the state is giving more encouragement to do bigger ones, so some of the high schools could get 750 kilowatt hours. And you're correct, some of our students who have gone on, some of the laborers with Push Buffalo went on to Alfred and definitely got better jobs in the economy.
Right, right. Well, yeah, I appreciate any of that data, and I just want to shout out Robert Harris and the CTE program and making sure that they, folks really dig into what's going on in that program, and how so many different facets of what we, count on, and the jobs that we see people doing in everyday lives are, we have internships and avenues available for our students. So just want to plug the CTE program.
Thank you, Jen. And I did forward the electric buses, I was going to say slide deck, I'm showing my age, PowerPoint presentation to everyone as well. So please take a look at it. It was very informative. If you have any questions, if I can't answer, I'm sure Mr. Hills, Mr. Steinberg can.
Okay. I'm sure we'll be moving on these cost avoidance, cost savings, 3-year payback projects in the near future with our Buildings and Grounds Department. Is there any other hands, any other board member wanted to speak on this before we move on to the next presentation? Seeing no hands. Thank you to the Sierra Club. And I'm sure we'll be moving on these kind of projects in the future. So if we can move to the next issue on our agenda, which is a presentation on the answer to finding a home for Da Vinci. Associate Superintendent Hill, are you prepared to begin with that?
Yeah, with the chair's permission, is it okay if Greg and I stand here so then we can see the PowerPoint and we can, Principal Ladinsky and I?
Please do whatever helps you to make your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Before we start, David Hills, Principal Ladinsky at Leonardo da Vinci High School, and he has some of his school community members he's going to introduce.
Well, Lucy Fuentes is right here.
She has access to the big table.
Oh.
She is our student representative on the Board of Education.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lucy. Typical Da Vinci students are in leadership positions. And I also have Victoria Borshing. Their moms are here as well. Victoria, why don't you come over here and say hello?
Hi.
And let's bring up the family members too.
Family members? Sally Gromska. And if you guys could introduce yourselves as well.
I'm Keisha Matthews. I'm Lucy's mom, and I also work for the board.
I'm Rosemary Borshik. I'm Victoria Borshik's mom.
Hello, everyone. Oh,
Did you? I introduced myself. I don't know if you all can see me. My daughter's a sophomore here at Da Vinci.
So, you guys can kind of see, and if there's any questions, you can come on up. But, so, unless you want to have them at this. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, and we'll also have any questions from the board that happen to come up. We appreciate the community engagement. What your mom forgot to say is she had the best social studies teacher in the district in 7th and 8th grade. So.
That's right. That's right.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about the journey that Da Vinci High School has gone through over the past couple of years. So Mr. Ladinsky and I are kind of going to walk through that and then answer some of the concerns that have been expressed. The next slide, Admir.
Thanks. Well, first of all, I want to preface by saying I believe that Da Vinci has found its new home. And I hope that everyone agrees. And we're very excited. I can speak for the school community that, and Victoria, you've toured the facility. I know our parent, and Charlie was there. Charlie was there as well. And I know their enthusiasm. They can't wait to move forward on the project. So who is Da Vinci High School? I think most of you already know who Da Vinci High School is. It's a high-performing community successfully created in which students feel comfortable being themselves. The Da Vinci core values are kindness, courtesy, dignity, and respect. Those are the core values that I repeat every day, multiple times a day. And I'm proud to say those are the core values that students have processed and are living, not only in the community of the school community, but also in their neighborhoods, and also radiating out those core values in the larger Buffalo school Buffalo community and throughout the world. So we live surrounded by a school family of supportive, positive, and understanding peers and adults, where, as you'll see soon, we're a diverse community in search of excellence. And I'm proud to say we found excellence by many measures. Da Vinci is a college preparatory high school uniquely located on a college campus. We've always been on a college campus. And hopefully you'll be able to speak with our students, and they'll tell you that one of the reasons they came to Da Vinci High School was because of that interaction between the college community and the high school experience. Students complete a rigorous curriculum, which includes 4 years of science and math with the expectation that they'll earn a Regents Diploma with advanced designation. In addition, students did take fully accredited college courses, and we consistently have a 95% graduation rate. In fact, last year, our rate was 100%, and I can confidently predict it will be again this year. So this is a successful learning community based on the commitment of teachers, staff, and of course my parent partners.
Next slide, Admir.
So here are some pie charts which shows you the diversity of Da Vinci High School. As you can see, 60% of the students at Da Vinci are students of color. Add in Asian students and you have 74%, 22% white, 71% economically disadvantaged, and almost a quarter are students with IEPs. Students between the primary ENL and those that have graduated out of the ENL program but still receive services are upwards of 24, 25%. The one area that we, as you can see, have a bit imbalance is our male-female ratio, which has been about 72, 73% as long as I've been there, about 12 years. And I can say that part of the past history of Da Vinci has always been predominantly a female. And I think that just off the top of my head, it's the athletic facilities are lacking and always have been. So we don't have, as Mr. Hills will tell you in a minute, we don't have a home gym. We don't play our home games at Da Vinci High School. Consequently, our teams are always away. There always has that sense that they're not part of the actual school building community. So I think that's probably one of the reasons, at least that's what the students tell me. Mr.
I can attest to the experience of sitting in Mr. Ladinsky's office and having a young man come in and Mr. Ladinsky saying, tell Mr. Hills what you told me. And him saying how they want to have a Da Vinci basketball team. It's hard to argue with a student who just says they want what a high school experience should be. Next slide, please. So as we know, 3 years ago, Da Vinci was named a U.S. Department of Education Blue Ribbon High School. The first time since I believe it was 1987, Hutch Tech had been named a Blue Ribbon school. It's very rare and it's a high honor. And it was due to students achieving advanced designation and graduation in at-risk populations. So that was the category that it was applied for in and granted under. We, a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, knew that we were at a crisis point. And instead of deciding what we were going to do and imposing it on the community, we hired a consulting company that their job was to find out what the learning community wanted to do, a comprehensive assessment. So VIA consultants came in and did focus groups, did surveying, sat with us and developed the focus group questions and developed a multi-stage report to give us a sense for where is the learning community at Da Vinci. Their first stop was, and this goes with the college-going culture, the goals of students at Da Vinci after graduation in this surveying was that 59% wanted to apply to a four-year university. 16% wanted to take some time off. Now, this was right post-COVID, where it seems like half the world wanted to take some time off. Apply to a two-year university, enlist in the military, and then enter the workforce. So it's a high orientation in the school culture towards college. Next slide. We did some work in the College Clearinghouse on what exactly has been the success rate of Da Vinci students in higher education. Nationwide, 68% of graduates attend college post-graduation. In BPS, 67%, which has increased dramatically the past 10 years. Da Vinci, it's 82% attend college post-graduation on an aggregate of 2012 to 2019. Da Vinci consistently outpaces national averages for both 2-year and 4-year college programs. Next slide, please. So where do they go? The schools they've gone to over the past, again, that 5-year period, Erie Community College for 68%. Now, we don't know how many of those students after Erie Community College went to a other credit-bearing baccalaureate institution. Buffalo State is the next highest, 93%. And what is very critical is that 72% retention rate. After 2 years, 72% of them are still enrolled. So those schools, and it varies from school to school. University of Buffalo, 49 went, but they have a high retention rate at UB. So wherever they go, there's a high retention rate compared to national averages. And there have been Da Vinci students that one went to Harvard 2 years ago, one went to Dartmouth last year. Mm-hmm. So Da Vinci students who are also accessing some very highly competitive schools in the country. Next slide, please. So how we got here. When Da Vinci was opened in the mid-'80s, it was actually kind of an offshoot of Grover Cleveland High School. Originally, the plan was to open it at Buffalo State, but there was something fell through, and it wound up being opened at D'Youville College had a space as a liberal arts college preparatory program. The whole point was for students to go on campus, earn college credits for a liberal arts degree, so they would get general education credits. As we just did a 15-year lease that expired in 2018. That 15-year lease, we've been doing extensions. But D'Youville as an institution had gone through a shift. The major one is they shifted to Division II competition. And in Division II, there are increased requirements for athletics fields, practice time. So in order to build a training facility, the pool that we used to use for some of our gym classes was taken offline. In order to fulfill their training requirements for Division II, we had to have restricted access to the main gym. So there was a real tension put on the partnership simply because both schools needed more than the facility could provide. The limitations of the facility, even with a planned renovation, the school was still a 1959 college dorm that had serious challenges. It was running off of a boiler system that was in Kabanoki, that air quality, ventilation, room size, had significant challenges. A large part of what was planned for renovation would go for accessibility. The academic partnership did not provide many transferable credits. So we wound up being in a position where students would take a college class, they'd go to college, and colleges would say, well, this don't count. So we had to really look at what credits are transferable. And then there was a dwindling sense of collective purpose. The partnership was based on a liberal arts identity. D'Youville is not primarily a liberal arts institution. They have really invested in the medical sciences, so much so that many of their liberal arts degrees are being completed by adjunct professors. And last I checked, there are about 50 kids enrolled at D'Youville in liberal arts programming compared to probably 4 times that in the nursing program for last year's numbers. So the school's identity has changed, but Da Vinci is still drawing students that are very interested in a broad range liberal arts education. And to say that we can put them into a cookie cutter isn't faithful to what necessarily they're interested in. Next slide. This is yours.
Yes. So what kind of students? So part of the focus group that VIA Associates conducted asked some specific questions for an array of people, including students, teachers, staff, an entire cross-section of the school community. And what you see on the screen now are responses. The bubbles are based on the number of responses of those particular answers. So the larger the bubble, the more people answered with that response. So as you can see, the largest bubbles, the students in the blue on the left side, Students who work hard can be successful at Da Vinci. That was the prompt. What kind of students can be successful at Da Vinci? Students who work hard, their own students said that. Students who pay attention, smart, brainy students, kind students. I'm proud of that one. All students can be successful here. I'm really proud about that. So the students themselves feel that if you work hard, anyone can be successful. It's not an exclusive environment. Any student can come in and they can be successful. Teachers and staff, which is in the orange bubbles, the largest response was college-bound students would be successful here. But then again, just as large, almost all students can be successful. So the teachers feel the same way the students do. We have a learning environment that will enable any student to come in and be successful and be on a college-bound track. And keep in mind, many of these students are students of color, students, immigrants, first-generation immigrants, students living in poverty, students living under duress. But yet they come to Da Vinci and they feel safe, they feel secure, and they feel that they are given the tools to be successful. And I think these bubbles reflect that collective energy that we have at Da Vinci.
Next slide, Adler. For the kind one, VIA actually came to us. We had to kind of ask that question at the focus group because they didn't believe that so many kids said that was important. So they've surveyed across the nation.
And that's a Da Vinci core value of kindness. So what's special about Da Vinci? The students said, being on a college campus, and I have my students and my parent partners here, and I think they would share that response. Being on a college campus is what brought them first to Da Vinci. Then the kindness and the core values, which they already sensed, came into play. But number one, they want to be on a college campus. They want to experience the interaction between the college community in their high school environment, in their high school career. So number one, being on a college campus. A bit smaller, but not too much, diversity and the inclusivity that we have at Da Vinci. So it's inclusive, it's diverse, it's small, that's the other bubble, meaning they like the sense of family. Again, not exclusive, but a small family, positive environment where they feel comfortable and they feel noticed and acknowledged and called by their name.
Next slide.
Here's the next prompt. How do you think Da Vinci's location on the campus of Duville impacts education? The blue are our students. It provides introduction and preparation for college. So students believe and they know that this is training them, this is acclimating them to be successful in college by being on a college campus during their high school career. So providing introduction and preparation for college was number one from the students. That's why they thought Da Vinci's location on campus impact education. The teachers in the orange, they felt it limited, in its present form with our present relationship with Duville, it limits opportunities for the reasons that Mr. Hill has just mentioned. A collective sense of purpose has kind of diverged in the past few years. The students also said being on college campus promotes their maturity because they have to interact with college students every day. And in fact, now more than ever, because Duville has classes on the first floor of the building and they have a dormitory on the fourth floor of the building. So we are always interacting with our Duville student partners.
Next slide.
Do you have any ideas? The next prompt, any ideas for how Da Vinci could make the high school experience better? Here's what our students said. Curriculum changes. They want music. They want AP classes. They want languages. And yes, they do want study halls. They also want more clubs and extracurricular activities. I'm very limited in what I can offer given the fact that I don't have access to a gym and an auditorium at all. An auditorium doesn't exist. In the gym, I don't have access to after 10:30 every morning. So my students, and I'm really pained to tell you this, that there's an equity imbalance when it comes to students at Da Vinci. For my students not to be able to use the gym after 10:30 creates such a hardship. And also it limits the sense of collective energy that we can have. We can't have pep rallies. We can't have group settings. We can't have plays. We don't have the venue for that, because even after school, we cannot use the gym because, again, as Mr. Hill said, Duval went to Division II, and that severely restricted our access to any of the athletic facilities on campus. So one of the bubbles, as you can see, we need more space. We want our gym back. We want pool access. We want bigger classrooms. One of my core values as a principal is that every one of my students is going to learn how to at least float, if not swim, in the water. We're surrounded by water in Buffalo, and I'm not going to have one of my students drown when they jump in the water on a hot summer day. I can't live up to that mandate that I set for myself because I don't have access to a pool. So my students can't use the pool and they can't learn how to swim or even how to float. So consequently, they're afraid of the water, or they're going to take an unsafe chance in the water and with very dire results. So that one really pains me to share, that my students can't learn how to swim.
Next slide. So last year, at one point, one of the English teachers, was it Mrs. Trode? Had their students write an essay on basically where the school should be. And I had read through them last year. I looked through them over the weekend. And one thing that struck me is how much COVID was very hard for students, and they were responding to it at that point. But from Alea Fidel, relocating to a different building would have multiple benefits. For instance, having spacious hallways. This would mean less people would bump into each other. Teachers wouldn't have to move around. They would have their own rooms. We have access to our library. We'd have our own auditorium gymnasium. Teachers would have a place to park their cars. And also the bathrooms wouldn't be the dirtiest part of the building. Overall, it would be more comfortable, efficient, and a better environment for both the staff and students. So when we were looking at what the next best step was, if we could have met what was described in this at the current location, we would have. But basically, the core values was a campus location as a non-negotiable. Experiencing campus life for first generation, for students that need to have that experience. College credit opportunities, durable college credit opportunities. Independent gym and auditorium. Larger classroom space. And opportunities for arts and music. So those were the main things that came through. Currently, Da Vinci, most of their classrooms in Madonna Hall are around 580 square feet, which is very small. When you had wall-to-wall seats during social distancing. Next slide.
There also is not a central air circulation system in Madonna at all. We have the machines, but there is no air filtration or movement of air. We open the windows in order to change the air in the classroom.
And there are air purifiers that have been put in the...
Yes, every classroom.
So we've worked on the academic partnership. We've been meeting with Buffalo State with their provost and associate provost in multiple departments. And based on what the current students are interested in at Da Vinci and what we can find crossover credits, we've looked at a program with 4 pathways. A fine and creative arts pathways, which really maximizes the fact that we have Birchfield Penny and we have Albright Knox right within walking distance of the Buffalo State campus. A life sciences foundations where those students who are interested in medical careers can pursue life sciences. Currently there is one gas and wet lab at Da Vinci to be able to expand that, so chemistry and biology and anatomy and AP classes can be conducted, and then also the potential for going to the science building, which is just across the quad to go into courses there. a teacher academy. And this wouldn't be the urban teacher academy, but this is working with their teaching program and really emphasizing students who have ability to look at secondary teaching. So looking at our students that have math expertise and how do we increase their exposure to the teaching profession and ability to enter Buffalo State with credits already towards pursuing a secondary teaching certification. Science, the same thing. Right now, if we need to fill a science position, we are desperate. So to build up those pathways, that would be of high benefit, and we've had several meetings with them about that. Communications and public relations, this focusing on the writing, the location close to Buckham Hall of the communications program and the media program and those elements, and again within a minute walk, there's also the media building, the media technology building. And then to produce an other buffet of options. If you're interested in dance, create a program where you're able to take some credits for dance, utilizing, again, facilities that wouldn't be traditionally in a Buffalo Public School. Next slide. So the way we're structuring it is that students would have opportunities for up to 5 courses for dual credit. 2 to 4 courses from the Buffalo State College catalog in designated pathways, electives, or SUNY general education options. Because one thing, as we've been talking at Buff State, anyone who goes to a school with general education requirements and they're standardized through New York State will have to take the same courses. And because it is part of the SUNY program, a credit there will be acceptable at any other SUNY school. Leverage existing advanced placement options for world history and environmental science or anatomy. So instead of necessarily having a college course, but use AP opportunities. And opportunities for non-credit volunteer service, both ways. Students can volunteer doing teaching experience, working on campus. Also there are a lot of campus groups that are interested in working with our students to fulfill their voluntary requirements. And then there's a potential for students to have 27 to 33 credits on graduation. Next slide, please. I always look over there. I assume Admir is right behind that door. So the location of Buckham Hall on the campus is centrally located with clear access. So that's the location. It was the old Campus West School. We are not looking at the whole Campus West School. It has a main building and it has 4 wings. They had used it for swing space as they were doing a campus-wide capital project. Now that capital project is scaled back a little, and we were interested in a partner, Dr. Crestus had gone to multiple schools, and this was the most viable option with a real interest by President Conway Turner to partner with the Buffalo Public Schools. Right now, in one of the wings, they have their philosophy department that's been renovated. Another wing is a daycare. And on the A wing, which is the central wing, the first 2 floors are being used by Buffalo State. The first floor is being used for, kind of some of their offices. There's a lot of the college prep offices. Gear Up is there. And then the basement is being used by the anthropology as a temporary location. And the second floor is being used as swing space, I believe right now, with social sciences. 3rd floor is completely open. The gym wing is completely open, and the E wing and the D wing, the other wing, the far wing up on the north end is completely open. So those are the wings we are being offered and have done the feasibility study on. Next slide. Next slide, Admir. So that's the configuration went through. The gym, locker rooms, and building D are state-of-the-art. They were college gyms. With very little work, they can be established. Mike House has gone through multiple times and sat with the feasibility study team, and they can be really easily retrofitted with very little need for a full Section 6 facility. That's the D wing, sorry. The auditorium in Building E is a full, beautiful auditorium.
Did we lose the presentation?
We did.
Hold on. Can we regain it, please?
He's working on it right now, Paula.
They do have it in Board Docs.
Okay, and there's room for specials and yellow bus drop-off. It's close to Delaware and the Elmwood bus routes. We have looked at the zip codes of students at Da Vinci and looked at what metro lines they're likely to take, and it would make, for many of them, 2 to 3 minutes difference in the added ride. For many of them, not a significant difference because of the heavy travel of those bus routes. So if you have the next slide, why does Buckham Hall work? The location, the existing amenities, the gym, it is a school, the positive relationship with Buffalo State College and Buffalo Public Schools. We have been meeting with the plants team, with the leadership team there, with the feasibility study team on a bi-weekly basis. Whenever I say, let's go look at something, they're there. We have also been meeting on a regular basis with the provost and his team, and Amitra Wall, the associate provost. We've also been meeting on a leadership level. So there's been a lot of attention to this, and anything we've asked for to process it through, we've received. The challenges. We really need to create a 21st century learning environment in a year-old building. And as was discussed by Ken the last time, as soon as we vacated the building and it went to college usage, the whole thing was put into a B code. And even if we're able to fight that, we've checked with state ed, we've checked with NYSED, we've checked with everyone. It needs to be fitted as if it was a new code change, which creates a lot of work we have to do. But honestly, a lot of work are things that have generational benefit for the students, where they will have a state-of-the-art 21st century facility. The infrastructure, the systems, the envelope, and health and safety, hazardous materials, and accessibility. Just to run through, we are just putting the accessible elevator in. If we can go to the slide that has site considerations.
Next one.
There, oh, back one. Oh, up two.
One more.
Yeah. Nope, you're going the wrong way. It's gonna be time for Greg to speak again.
Hey.
Yes. So, sprinkler systems and fire protection, just for the area we're occupying. Mechanical and HVAC, electrical service updates, or to serve electricity to a 21st century school, we need better current from the panel in the basement. So the whole service, the fiber optic connection needs to be redone in order to have, again, state-of-the-art connection. Abatement in the ceilings, the walls, the floors, the tiles are hot, the ceiling tiles are hot, the insulation around the ductwork is hot, the caulk on the windows is hot, so there's a lot of abatement work. Building envelope insulation, we've looked at the choice is to look at a fully energy efficient 21st century building, so that there is full insulation, there's full rescue windows, that it meets energy efficiency standards, and that the health and safety is top notch. Those were basically, no matter what we did, if we did a minimal impact, or if we did maximum impact. Next slide. So the minimal construction impact would mean that there are several rooms that are observation rooms in both the E wing and the A wing. It would not take those rooms out. Those rooms are elevated, so they're not accessible. Those rooms, when they're taken out, they need additional abatement, and it needs to be ground down so it's level with the other rooms. So we would only get 20 classrooms if we left all of those spaces. And really, they wouldn't be able to be used for the original intent, because they have two-way mirrors in them that are falling apart. So we would have to renovate those two-way mirrors. We could use them for storage, but they're really novelty space that wouldn't have large use, and no education program of preparation would use them in the way the school originally used them when they were observation rooms. But we lose a lot of square footage in those observation. We only have 20 classrooms then, which is basically a room for room swap for what Da Vinci has now. It would still be 16-month construction duration, because we still would have to do new HVAC, we still have to do new window envelope, we'd still have to do new ceiling because the HVAC equipment is bigger than what is allowed in the ceiling. We'd still have to do full abatement. We'd still have to do things like make sure the chemistry lab, both of them have full gas, full ventilation, make sure the fiber optic is through, make sure that everything is set up. It's still, in order to meet those requirements, would be 16 months for construction and design. Because the project in any impact is over 8 million, we would have to send it out for RFP. The more maximal approach gives us 26 classrooms that are slightly less square footage. So you're looking at about from 1,100 square foot to 980 square foot, which is still larger than any of the classrooms. The average reconstruction classroom is 780 to 820. So it's much larger than the reconstruction classrooms. They would still be very large classrooms. By eliminating and doing the maximal approach, we actually have more aidable space freed up. So we would be able to apply for more state aid. It would cost $26 million, but we'd still be paying $4 million, where a $19 million version, you'd still be paying $4 million. We would have less aidable potential. So by doing more, we get more aidable space, and we set the school up for a future focus. Either option would have been 16 months. We were hoping that somehow we could occupy in 2023. That was everyone's dream. It quickly became apparent that some of the ventilation issues were going to blow that open. So we were hoping then for December of 2020. But as all of it was explored, all of the issues added up to a 16-month construction duration, which puts us in September of 2025. But again, we are working on the short-term plan, but the long-term plan is to build a facility that is appropriate for Da Vinci. And no one, if I could change the time, I would. It was a meeting on July. We had a big grape session after it, where it just became clear that the 20-page list of things that need to be done was too much. Next slide, please. Oh, that was the last slide. You can go back. So I did prepare a 4-page document that was going to be shared for last board meeting, the question and answer, but can be shared with the board on all issues that have been identified in the construction project. And Nate, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about how the lease is going to be structured.
Well, at this point, we have a draft lease. We have a draft lease from Buff State. Typically, these leases run about 15 years in duration. Because that is the time period in which the state will consider allowance. Typically, you can go less than 15 years, but you can't go more than 15 years. You can build into the lease, extension terms. That state, a number of different conditions on them. I don't really want to get too in depth on any negotiation strategy or the like publicly, as that wouldn't be in the board's best interest. Really what we're waiting for now is for the board to consider a resolution at its business meeting, which will authorize our pursuit of the next steps of this project. And one of those steps will be the commencement of lease negotiations so that we can get a finalized lease to be reviewed by the state education department and approved by the state education department and ultimately by the board. And we're ready to get to work on that the day after the next board meeting. I've already been in contact with the attorneys for Buffalo State University, or Buffalo State College, and they are ready to partner and get to work. And I would, this will be an amicable process. But before we begin, we will talk in executive session with the board so that I can get your thoughts and ideas on what you'd like to see so we can bring those forward to the table. Thank you.
So the resolution is essentially the first step. So we can then move on from the feasibility study, initiate approach to state ed, put together an RFP for design, and work with, the hard thing about this project, there are 4 entities involved. There's Buffalo State, there's Buffalo Public Schools, there's New York State Education Department, and there's the State Construction Fund, which is always involved whenever there's construction on a college campus. So we will need to get everything together to initiate that process of issuing an RFP, and then going through the process of accepting that RFP, which again, there will be many checkpoints as with the lease where the board will be able to weigh in on the direct, but we make sure that learning communities can be very fragile. And one thing learning communities need is hope. And to do what we can, no one expects us to be perfect on this, but my commitment is to keep the ball moving down the field so we take care of the learning community at Da Vinci as we intend to take care of every learning community.
I see a hand raised. It's off the screen. Larry Scott.
It's Larry Scott.
You have a question, please proceed, Board Member Scott.
Thank you.
It's Board Member Scott.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Woods. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
I just
can
want
hear
to
you.
thank you for the very thoughtful, informative presentation, inclusive of stakeholders, the Leonardo da Vinci stakeholders, especially our students. Really a comprehensive presentation, and in taking this whole presentation in, I am further convinced that this is the right move for Da Vinci. As it was very clear in the presentation, Da Vinci is a unique treasure, another unique treasure that we have in the city of Buffalo and Buffalo Public Schools. And this seems like the appropriate step to advance the uniqueness that we have from Da Vinci. So I support moving forward with this and doing so sooner rather than later so we can get work moving and get Da Vinci moved to this new location as soon as we possibly can, and not delay any longer.
Jim McCosey, Board Member McCosey, you would like to speak? Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman Woods. So I echo Board Member Scott's comments, and I want to be very cognizant and realistic about, and kudos to you all about being very realistic with us as the challenges. Much of this presentation was about the challenges, and there isn't this, oh, we got this, oh, it's going to be great, and just wait and see. There's some real work that has to happen here. We have the support. Going with the consultant was the way to go. This school being in my district, I've had many conversations around some of the, some folks who weren't really sure what's going to happen. And I felt the tension right along with everyone else, but I trusted and believed in the consulting firm's way of bringing all the stakeholders together. So I appreciate that move more than just, us having a town hall. What do you guys think? And then leaving it at that. So I just want to bring all of the, positive energy forward around all that you've done, around every angle that you've covered. And yes, this 2025 is not around, it's not tomorrow, but to give the best that we can possibly give with every T crossed and I dotted, this is what it's going to take. And as long as everybody's on the same page and we communicate with each other, I just really appreciate that finally Da Vinci will have this home.
And thank you. And I do want to stress the work on the academic partnership is going forward, so we can roll that out even before we're able to occupy the building.
I see Board Member Ann Rivera's hand is up. Would proceed, please speak.
I believe Dr. Evans-Brown was before me, so I'm happy to wait until she's done with her questions and comments.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera, for being considerate.
Dr. Brown.
Board Member Chair, thank you. Thank you for the extensive presentation. We certainly know the woes and challenges that you have over at Da Vinci, and we certainly don't want to be somewhere we're not wanted or treated fairly. Now, with that said, I always believe that having schools on college campuses is a great thing. The research shows it. I remember working at the University of Buffalo for about 12 years, and we had, probably upwards of 400 young people from the Buffalo schools come on campus, and we couldn't get rid of them because we offered them something that nobody else could offer. And some of those young people, well, most of them, went on to higher ed and constructive positions and careers throughout the years. I also like the fact that you presented the challenges, because it certainly sounds like there's many. However, you have to realize that Buffalo Public Schools was once on that campus, Buffalo State, and there's history, and that was under another leadership as well. So I think sometime when leadership change at higher education institutions, it could be good and or not so good. And it's interesting with your presentation that you talked about the diversity of our students at Da Vinci. And you were able to bring these children up to a point where they were recognized, or the school was recognized as a blue ribbon school in the state. And if you know, when you talk about some of the challenges that you face with no gym, no access to a gym, no pool, limited athletic capabilities, you surpass those challenges with those challenges, right? So kudos to you as the leader of that institution, and to the young people who made the assertions about being kind. I think some adults can learn from that, right? Every day. And also wanting to be, you know, on the college campus where inclusion is important, diversity is important, and they have higher aspirations for themselves. So thank you for listening to my 2 cents.
Thank you. And Dr. Evans-Brown, I think to add to that, we are very unique in having a school co-located on a college campus. Many districts are not able to make it work. As we are unique, we have a lot of unicorns. We have 2 culinary programs that are unique in the nation of fully operating restaurants by a public high school. We also have one of the more successful middle early college programs in the nation. So I think we have a lot of unicorns in the district, and where it comes from is the strong leadership from the district and at the building level, and the strong commitment of our families and students and staff to making these programs work to bring the best about for students, no matter what the challenges are. And there are a lot in this.
Okay, we have questions from Board Member Ann Rivera, and then President Patucci.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. I appreciate it. So I'm going to echo the sentiments of a lot of my colleagues. So I just want to emphasize or underscore what they've already said. I'd also like to draw the attention to the fact that this is a distinguished public-public partnership. It's a public institution, a public college, pairing with a public district. And I think that is an important thing to recognize. It's an important thing to note, along with number 2 and 3 for retaining students to year 2 are the public institutions on the list for our Da Vinci students. I also really want to highlight how important that academic partnership is. The fact that the school will be moving towards a place where there are strong liberal arts instruction by full-time faculty members, and that students would be able to get almost all of what their gen eds, no matter what institution they go to, fulfilled, that would be a possibility for them. So just of note, most core curriculums, most gen ed curriculums are 27 to 33 credits. So students would be able to pursue that. That's an incredible advantage. And it really says very strong things about what we could provide for our students. I'm also really glad to hear that the academic partnership is something that can happen sooner, because we want to continue to encourage our students. It's clear that there's a very distinctive culture that we want to preserve. And I did appreciate particularly the side-by-side comparison about the difference between minimal construction and what maximizing the Da Vinci program would look like, particularly in the way in which the funding might work. So I look forward to talking about the next steps as we move forward.
Thank you.
Board President Patucci, you had questions. Your hand was next.
Thank you, Chairperson Woods. So I strongly support the move to Buff State. I think it's a much better fit. I think there's much better course offerings. It's a much better location. I mean, for a variety of different reasons. There are a number of students that attend Da Vinci from the Park District. They always have. It will be a little bit longer bus ride, but I think the benefit far outweighs that couple extra minutes on the Delaware or the Elmwood or whichever bus you're taking. But I do have, I'll say once or twice shot Because when we were at Campus West, which was a great school on Buff States, and we were shown the gate, they said it was for environmental reasons in the building, and lo and behold, they're giving us the building back and they haven't touched anything. So that kind of doesn't exactly, sit too well with me. It doesn't ring true, I'll put it that way. It just, and I realize going forward that, we need to address these things. Once we touch many of these elements during the course of construction, they're going to need to be addressed. I get that. We're going to need a CFO for the state. The one that we had is, 30, 40 years old, all those reasons why. I get that. But some of the improvements we will be doing to the building, even if we lose our lease, like removing all the asbestos, will be permanent. They're not like a roof that we have to replace in 20 years. Once the asbestos is gone, it's gone. Once you put in a sprinkler system, it's a sprinkler system. So some of these improvements will benefit the college even after our lease runs out, but that's okay. That's the nature of construction. One of the things, though, I just want to put my concerns out there because one more thing. Have there been discussion because Dr. Conway Turner is leaving, how this is going to work with the new transition?
Yes. The superintendent met the other day with President Conway Turner to discuss that very issue and received all of the assurance and the confidence that the team is fully behind it as the transition starts over at the college.
Perfect. And then my last thing is that, because I know Da Vinci is starting to have open houses, and parents are going to want to know what this looks like between 2023 and 2025. So have there been discussions, have you thought about what the present on Buff State campus looks during that interim period until it's all built out?
So there are two layers to that. One, we need a swing site for Da Vinci High School. The lease at Jubal ends at the end of this year. We need to have a swing site while we're preparing this, but we also have talked to them about the possibility of when we have students transported to campus, can there be a hub spot? So we're looking to identify a spot where we can have that.
And can you give us any more what that might look like?
We haven't walked a couple spaces, so their job was to kind of think of a couple spaces, and we go back to the table next time we talk.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, several questions. First, starting with 2 years. What is going to happen to this very successful, prominent school in that 2-year period? What if we were able to come up with an alternative that was on a college campus? Because you can have a relationship with a college and not have to be on that college campus. But if we were able to come up with an alternative that took less time, was less expensive, and the Buffalo Public Schools would actually own the building. I believe that was something that was suggested, put forth, that we should at least investigate, take a look at before we march headlong into a situation where we spend $26 million that we could, Buffalo Public Schools could build an entire new building itself and own a building. Because the 15-year lease situation, we're facing it now. It's ended.
Well, just from a financial standpoint, it's not an apples to apples comparison because the state may not reimburse on the purchase of a building, whereas it's going to reimburse 85% roughly of a 15-year lease, which would be aidable by the state. So it's not like it's 26 million of our dollars versus 20 million of our dollars. You have to factor in the reimbursement criteria that the state will hold us accountable to. And they may reimburse one option without reimbursing the other. Of course, we will investigate those things, but the rules are pretty clear on those things.
Isn't it about $3 million our cost, if memory serves?
That's right. So it's really $3 million of our dollars versus whatever it would cost to buy something. which is completely out of our pocket. Granted, we own it, but you have to also know those details as well.
So,
and that is the point. The point is that we are looking at putting a blue ribbon school to waiting till 2025 without an identified alternative. And you were very thorough in presenting the challenges, questions that were raised about the elevator. The students are not going to have the first and second floors, and the question was raised: this elevator, where is it going to be, and is it all the way on the other side of campus? It was a question of safety for our students in the configuration that you presented. I'm looking for that. That's a student safety is a very important issue. I would like you to speak to that, because that's what board members did raise in this configuration. Also, would curb-to-curb transportation be possible for with this site? You've stated there is currently asbestos in the building, and you're going to remediate part of it, but not significant parts. There is a number of questions that need to be addressed in the challenges of this site. And financial considerations of that.
So let me try and work through those. One, absolutely. We are going to have a clear plan of what the interim will be, and we will not take any option off the table. But we don't want to eliminate this option by not pursuing it to the degree we can. But there are other issues we're looking at, and it doesn't have to be an either or. Now, to build a new building under the current construction environment that would house Da Vinci and have a gym, an auditorium, a full school. Construction costs on new school buildings have gone up 30% last year. They're planned to go up another 25% this year. It would take probably $50 to $60 million, and that's a moving target. Plus, it would be 4 years before we're able to cut the ribbon. So we would have a long time of design. Well, first we'd have to secure a location, design, RFP, construction, state out approval. All of that would take probably 4 years. So we don't like the 2 years. If I could do anything to change that, I would. But that option, the superintendent has said that she wants a new build at some point. But to do a new build is a highly cost-intensive, time-intensive process. And it would be very difficult. So, but we are pursuing other options. We are investigating fully other options.
There was a suggestion that board members tour a high state-of-the-art building on a campus. What happened to that suggestion? I was waiting to get the tour of this.
So if that building is, I can't discuss too much of it, but buildings that we're going to use will have to have a gym, and we'll have to have a cafeteria, and the things that are at Buff State will not be necessarily in properties that we're discussing. So to answer the security question, the elevator will be secured, and it will be in the main entry for Da Vinci students directly to the third floor. That will be an elevator for Da Vinci students' use. In design, we're going to look at possibility of secure cards for the students, so they would have access cards. As far as cutouts, there will be cutouts for the existing specials and more, plus the existing door-to-door buses and more in the feasibility study. Cutouts all along Reese Street, and then extending past the walkway to have additional cutouts. So all of those will be accommodated. We've done a careful study of how many buses are in front of Da Vinci, how many parents drop off, and if you're ever at the corner of Porter and Fargo in the morning, you'll notice how congested that corner is. So we will make sure that the new site accommodates all of the buses and potential parent drop-offs and potential parent visits. And that is something we've gone back and forth on a lot to make sure it's accommodated.
The question that was raised was the optional building, state-of-the-art building that was cheaper that Buffalo Public Schools could own. You could have a gym and a auditorium added cheaper than doing all the renovations, the asbestos abatement, and turning it all over to Buffalo State Schools. Like, it's almost like a gift of public funds is what's was raised.
I don't think a gift of public funds is an accurate description, but I understand the concept behind it. I do want to address the asbestos abatement. We are abating the areas we are in, but the other areas that have been used by Buffalo State have been abated. They did a full renovation on one of the wings that is their philosophy department, and it is top to bottom, completely new. They have abated the first floor and second floor as they've occupied it in order to have college classes there. They just never used the third floor, so it never needed to be abated. But for example, the abatement needs in the gym wing are minimal because they had done a lot of abatement there so they could use it temporarily. So the abatement that is needed will be in the areas we occupy because those are the only areas that haven't been addressed in the building.
So there's still, the time frame is still 2025?
Still 16 months of construction. Part of that 2 years is the time it would take for an RFP to be issued and responded to. 16 months for actual design and construction. There's always a chance of short. Those are, we had both Cannon and Trophy Point have done a pretty comprehensive timeline to give us a sense for it. I've asked them to be conservative, to not give us false hope. So there are opportunities for possibly having some efficiencies built in to get it done quicker. But there's also the possibility that we all could be wrong and timelines change. I'm not going to guarantee, but 2025 is what I believe in, and I don't like it, but it is the situation we have, and no one likes it. But I want to.
Every option takes time.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I want to stress what we've found is the critical component of being on a college campus, integrating with that college environment, as not only the credit potential, but also the enculturation to a college-going culture that helps to support students as they take their next step into post-high school academics.
I think
So
if you
the survey that was done a year ago, does it preclude the possibility that Da Vinci can have a college partnership with a college and not be on that campus?
Campus location was a key finding, that it was of high value. If it's not on a campus location, that would be a counter to what was found in the focus group in the survey.
And you're aware the other high-tech building is on a college campus also. Is there any problem with just investigating and touring and having more than just one alternative best use for or opportunity for Da Vinci, especially if it could reduce the timeline? I respect the tremendous research and thought that is going into giving this alternative. and accepting and acknowledging the challenges that we may repeat history. But my mama always said it's a poor rat that don't have more than one hole. So, and I've never had a bid without 3 bids.
Ms. Woods, of course, we're going to investigate all of our possible options that are in the best interest of our students and the students at Da Vinci, but it's very critical. You know, we talk about relationships and we talk about, you know, Lou mentioned the past experience with Buff State. We have had a very productive, collegial, collaborative year with the folks over at Buffalo State, and this is as opposed to what we've experienced over the last 5 years, you know, over at Duville has been. It's a warm relationship right now, and as we head into negotiations with them, it's important, you know, if we don't have an alternative option, you know, that really is in the best interest of our kids, that we project, you know, that positivity as we engage in this marriage, so to speak, you know, with Buffalo State. It's important that, you know, our board is fully behind this as well. So I think, you know, we will of course investigate all of the potential options, and if there's anything that makes sense, you know, we'll bring that to the board and discuss that, usually behind closed doors.
Okay, I'm not being negative on this. I totally respect the president of Buff State, appreciate their collaboration and cooperation, but the best use of Buffalo Public Schools dollars and a timeline that's as swift as possible to look out for Da Vinci. I do believe, just as municipal law requires at least 3 bids and to investigate all alternatives, I think that's prudent. So that's all I have to say on that. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I believe Mr. Scott does.
Mr. Scott, Board Member Scott?
Yeah, I just want to further add to the importance of having the new Da Vinci on a campus, on a college campus. The presentation that it was clear to me that it is a central part of what Da Vinci is, to be physically on the campus of a college campus, or on a location on the college campus. So publicly, I just want that known, that as one board member, I strongly support that the Da Vinci's new location be physically on the campus of another college.
Thank you, Board Member Scott. Board Member Rivera, Vice President Rivera.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate that, and I'd also like to reiterate the importance of this kind of partnership, this kind of public-to-public partnership. We are public partners. We are all New York State institutions, but really, to my mind, and it might be because I'm an academic, but I think that's the point, right? The point here is that students have access to a curriculum that they do not have access somewhere else. And they have an access to a curriculum that's going to give them a jump start in their college careers and ultimately save their financial aid, save their funding, save their out-of-pocket expenses, and is going to credential them to go where they want to go. We already have very high-functioning students at Da Vinci. They deserve that kind of academic enrichment. And I think that needs to be a part of the entire way that we think about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Rivera. But again, as some of the community members and staff and other people have pointed out, that relationship with the college could be maintained. You said it's very positive without a $26 million outlay of revamping their buildings. And there is a possibility of being on a campus. So I'm just suggesting, strongly urging that we pursue more than one alternative, because that's really what strategic planning is about.
26 million. It's not $26
million.
I was just going to ask for that clarification. I believe it was $3 million that we're talking about because of the way reimbursement works.
That
We're
will
not
be
talking
about-
net costs, we're talking actual dollars to construct and make this. That's not 3 million, that is 26 million.
And
Apples and apples.
23 of that is reimbursable by the state education department. It's not going to come out of this board's budget.
Well, then let me ask this second question.
And
I know
let's
that
consider both alternatives.
So if we're going to talk strategic planning, that's a fair point. This is finance and operations. We need to talk about these things. I'm glad you brought it up. If we're talking about strategic planning, I think we as a board need to think and understand all of the ramifications of the fixed costs that are associated when you buy a brick and mortar building or build a brick and mortar building versus leasing. And I, for one, if that's going kind of thing is going to be on the table in any situation, not just this situation, any situation, I would like to see a side-by-side comparison of what those costs are going to be, because you make a fair point. We're talking about actual costs. I'm interested about what kind of actual costs would go forward versus a 15-year lease versus 15-year mortgage where we're buying something. So those are all things that I think at a larger strategic planning level, we as a board, outside of this particular situation, we as a board need to have a discussion about.
I appreciate that perspective, because I, for one, know that when you own assets, when Erie County found itself in a financial situation, it was able to sell those assets and balance its budget. There is value to actually owning property and having something rather than just investing and leasing. So, but I agree, it should be another discussion. It shouldn't be on the table.
Yeah, I think that's not tonight. I think we need to take it out of tonight and go in a different direction, because also too, we need to do an apples and apples comparison about the restrictions that are under institutions that are guided by NICEAD, which they do have some significant ones that differ in different ways. But I take your point. I'm looking forward to that conversation as we move forward.
Ms. Woods? So
yes.
a couple important points. So first of all, we don't generally, the Buffalo Public Schools generally doesn't own buildings. The city of Buffalo owns buildings. We manage those buildings, and then when we're done with them, we give them back to the city. We're not an independent school district. We're a dependent school district. We are a division of the city of Buffalo, and that creates a whole different set of challenges for us. Now, I think there are two things that we need to do going forward. I think we need to identify, we need to do a use study, because there are places we need to go, because where our programs and our administration in the Buffalo Public Schools doesn't line up with our building usage. The two of them are not copacetic. So we as a board need to sit down and try to align our programs at the high school level in particular, but increasingly it's going to be pre-K and kindergarten and ELL and a whole bunch of different. If we want to expand some of our criterion-based schools, all those different things that we've discussed, we have to figure out how we're going to align the space that we have, and then most likely identify new space that we're going to either have to build or obtain. So that is something we need to do as a district, but that's going to take some time. And that's the one thing I'm concerned about this is I don't know how much time we have, because I would hate to, one in the hand and two in the bush. There might be a better space out there. I don't see it, but Buff State is I have my concerns, but Buff State I think is the best fit for Da Vinci. Second thing, one thing that most government agencies are going to now is some type of lease back, where you have a corporation that does the build out for you, you lease it back for 15 years, and at that 15 years or 20 years, when all the roof have depreciated and all the lighting fixtures need to be upgraded and the wire and everything else, then you redo it all. Now that's something we could look to as a district is that way we'd be controlling the assets. We'd have a spin-off corporation or something along that controls the assets. That'd be a subsidiary of the city somehow, but we would have control of the assets. We would be able to put the assets in there. We would apply for the funding, redo that. We'd be able to build it out to spec. All that stuff we would do. But again, that's a great idea. But that I think is a long-term hard goal for this board and this district. I think we can achieve it. I just don't think we can achieve it in the time that we can do it in order to get Da Vinci onto a college campus. And that's my only concern is I don't want all good things, all things I think we need to achieve. It just is going to take some time. And I think time is what's up against us right now.
Thank you, President Petrucci. Again, I don't believe this is the appropriate setting at this time to go into the other alternatives. I believe I heard a commitment to look at other alternatives. And with that said, Buff State, the presentation is thorough with the challenges, and thank you so much for all the hard work and the presentation. And I'm sure that we don't want this to just be discarded or lost, but we do want to do due diligence.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I believe we have one more thing on our agenda, a presentation on All High Stadium, another capital project, an update.
It's been a long 2 hours. May I sit down?
Please be comfortable.
The first school board member I've ever, first student school board member.
So we have had discussions about phase 3 of All High. When the original scope of work for the project was designed, it did have phase 3 was much less aggressive. So we have sat down with Mike House. We've been working on it, and the board identified some of these issues too, in addition to what was planned for phase 2. The visitor building with visitor entrances and separate bleachers on top of the visitor building. And from what I understand, that's because of space considerations. And also a locker room for visitors with a separate restroom, separate storage, and separate concession for visitors. Having been there at the Tigers versus Maritime Charter School for Health Sciences, we had our highest attended event ever with about 1,300 spectators, and the mingling of visitor and home was a problem. So being able to, every time House sits with me to go over this, he says, remember when we were there? So separate home and away concessions, because right now it's just a home. They're at All High, there's a tent. They walk down to the tent. It's visitor and home teams mingling. They're walking in front of all the spectators. A video board and play clocks, sound system, state of the art, field lighting, canopy lights, and field electric, sliding gates and fencing, home and away coaches and home and away luxury boxes, a sponsorship board, and then access points, and then also a state-of-the-art press box. So those are the items that have been identified by sitting with Mike House, working with plants, as potential for phase 3. To just design it would exceed the stage 3 design contract we've already established. So we may have to issue an RFP if we're able to find the budget to increase the design and then the construction cost for stage 3. We're talking, originally we had, for the scope of work for stage 3, we were talking $5 million. It's likely to be $8 or $9 million now. Now, we've just started in the past couple of weeks having the conversations about stage 3. So we have to investigate if there's the possibility of an addendum, but there's every possibility that we would have to RFP design and construction, and that would be much more expensive. But all of those items, if we can allocate the funding, we're committed to providing a state-of-the-art facility that will have generational impact. you only get one chance to take a bite at this apple every 20 years. So we are committing to as much as we can. It is more than we thought we would put into stage 3, but we're gonna bring it up. We're gonna push it forward, and then we're gonna decide where we go with next steps. I don't have a fancy slide or a study by any consultant group or anything. I just have emails that went back and forth the past couple days.
Okay, I appreciate you mentioning each of those items because, as you said, we get one time to do this right. And when you see other school districts having luxury boxes and getting advertising revenue and making money because they are forward thinking and they include those type of things, you know, we're the best school district in the state as far as I'm concerned. So I'd like to see us do some of those same things. The question about the elevators and the entrances, you are addressing that is a concern, and you've been here and you're aware of it. So all I can say is that I know the Bennett alumni is looking forward to this project, and I hope we can address these issues and, as you said, make this a state-of-the-art project that we can be proud that this board and this administration constructed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Woods.
Does any other board member have any questions on the update on the All High Stadium?
No.
Wow, wonderful. It's 8 o'clock. Looks like we might be able to get out of here on time if there's no questions.
Only an hour late, Paula.
Well, that's those are the only comments I have on that project. I appreciate the update. Look forward to further work on the stage 3 with some of these items added. And that concludes finance and ops. Give it back to President Petrucci.
You didn't have to, but thank you. So I think we're adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hill, Dr. Hill.